Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some pro-revenge stories and our first story of the day is by TheAJProject. Relatives lose everything because they were too stupid to keep their mouths shut. A bit of context here. I work as a lawyer for an excellent and famous law firm here in northern Italy. My family went through some tough times. In the last 9 years, we had to face a brutal divorce with my dad having depleted every single cent he could. One of my aunts was brutally murdered because of a €150 cautionary deposit. My granddad was diagnosed with cancer and some other funny stuff in the middle. Because of that, our bonds became stronger and stronger. Must say that with my family, I mean my mother, her parents, and my 2 aunts. This year, the virus managed to take away both my aunts. I love them to the moon and back, but one of them was married to a complete D-bag. He always considered himself to be better and smarter than anyone else, and so were his relatives. My aunt and her husband, I straight up refused to call him uncle, lived in a huge house, and so did his brother with her wife and son. He died around 7 to 8 years ago and left almost everything he could just to his brother and his family, completely ignoring my family because OP's granddad is already rich, why should I leave anything to his daughter and grandson? Basically. This year, my aunt was won by COVID. I was grieving since I really loved her and cared about her, and I already lost another aunt prior. When the notary called us to read the will, both me and my mother came out completely astonished. She left us just a few things, even though she always said she would have left us basically everything. I don't need the money involved that much, as I already inherited from my other aunt, and my job pays me really well. But my mom always had to struggle financially speaking. It would have been a huge help, since she doesn't want anything from me. I tried to give her money in the past, but she always sent them back, being stubborn as she can be. As we walked out, I pulled my cousin by my side to ask him just one thing. Hey cousin, listen, I know it's a dumb question, but when I last saw her, I brought my aunt a little ceramic bell, shaped as a lady. She held it to her chest all the time. I'd like to have it back, it would be a memory of her. He, smiling at me as I was the most stupid person on earth. Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know what I could do with that stupid bell. Take it, but don't expect us to give you anything more. We had to sweat bullets for this will to work. I say, I'm sorry, what do you mean? He realized he screwed up, so he just left. My mom went back home. I headed back to my office to take a closer look on my aunt's will. It was bulletproof and the handwriting was, without any doubt, my aunt's. So what the heck did he mean? It took me several weeks to finally get the clue. As previously mentioned by my husband, it was just this small phrase. My aunt's husband died 7 years before. How the heck could he mention anything? Since zombies are still nowhere to be seen and I don't know of any deceased person talking from his grave, I started to scan the whole will once again. Things I never noticed became as clear as the sun. 1. There were missing pages. My aunt numbered them, but the 2nd and 4th pages were missing, with sentences left hanging there. 2. Some of the corrections were legit, but looking closely, there were a few of them where the uncertain hand of an 81-year-old lady suddenly became stronger and more precise. 3. My aunt's husband was mentioned every time my aunt was talking about money and valuables. He did say something about the savings, but apparently his ties that were to be given to charity didn't need his approval. Strange, huh? When I talked to my mom and her parents about this, my granddad, who is 74 and still has more strength and lucidity than your average 40-year-old dude, mentioned my aunt's husband's will. We don't know what he said. His family never even let us take a look at it, and it wasn't worth it to sue them. I went back to the notary the next day asking to see the will, since I was a relative. He let me, but asked what was going on. I simply said, "You'll know soon enough." When I read it, I started laughing so hard that even the secretary came to check what the freak was going on. I rushed back to my office and started to write everything down. Crap was about to hit the fan, but not for my family. After a few days, me, my mom, her parents, and my aunt's relatives met once again in front of the notary. I already told them what was happening. I could see him trying not to look disgusted as my aunt's husband's beloved ones walked in. Notary says, "We are all here. Apparently, OP has some things to discuss with us concerning inheritances." You could hear a pin drop a mile away. I stood up and opened my bag. My family was smiling, my relatives were staring daggers from their eyes. I say, "As we all know, Auntie left everything to you. Nothing is wrong here, as she didn't have any direct relationship with anyone in this room. What is wrong is the reason behind it." I handed a copy of the will to everyone, with some parts being highlighted. As you can see, pages are missing. Some corrections are different, to say the least. But most importantly, my uncle is cited quite often. This led me to his will. At this point, my relatives turned whiter than snow. My cousin tried to stop me, telling me I couldn't possibly use my uncle's will as more than 5 years passed. The notary told him that I totally could, as the allowance to contest a will is 10 years. He kept silent. He left to my aunt everything he had if she would have left it to you as she died. You see, in our state, it's not legal to make such a kind of contract. So, I want to let you know that you just lost all your rights on my uncle's will, and you are all to be sued for false declaration and public deed and attempted fraud. They started screeching and screaming, calling me names and wishing me an obviously pleasant and late death. All because one of them wasn't clever enough to shut his mouth. Now they lost everything they had, since their farm, their money, their house, and their cars were all my uncle's. They have been forced to leave the house they were living in, all their bank accounts have been blocked, and even their farm had to be closed since it was also my uncle's previous activity. Since the correction they made were actually very precise and some items, jewelry, ingots, cash, are now mysteriously missing, they even have to pay for an equal value. They had a little empire, but managed to lose everything over greed and stupidity. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me. If you want to screw with someone, at least have the courtesy of not doing it with a lawyer. Apparently in Italy, notaries have a lot of power and can do some pretty impressive stuff. Do you think this going down is enough to completely cut off any non-immediate family member from any kind of conversation? Never talk to them again, never see them again? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by the local boy. Want to not clean a store amidst the pandemic? Enjoy the health department. So I worked at a store, a cookie cutter store that is a well-known chain. We begin the tale when I first started. I started at the store in June of 2020, about 3 to 4 months into the global pandemic. After working there for a little bit, I noticed that I was never told when and with what I was supposed to clean the carts and baskets or anything with in the store. So I went to my store manager and asked, "What am I supposed to clean the carts with?" To which she responded with, "Oh, that's not your job. They clean the store at night, so it doesn't matter." I was a little suspicious of this response because our store manager didn't even let us vacuum the store. So I asked the assistant managers that close, to which they said that they in fact do not wipe any of the carts down. So then the next day I come in and the store manager comes to me and says, "Oh, I never answered your question. Here are some wipes. You can wipe them down if you want to, but you know, the virus is spread through the air. That is why we have to wear these stupid masks. So wiping things down doesn't really do anything. It also makes all the carts sticky and gross. Also, if you want to be technical, we would need to wipe all the merchandise down too, because you have the people in the factories that make them touching them, then the redistribution centers, then us, and it would be a whole mess and take too long." I literally sat there biting my tongue so hard. Most of our customers are older people who live off of government benefits, and they come in and buy stuff because it is insanely cheap. So my store manager wasn't only putting them at risk, but the employees too. So I took the wipes and would wipe everything down as much as possible during my shift. However, sadly, I could only do it twice per shift, the start and end of my shift. Eventually, I got tired of being the only one attempting to clean the store, so I called the lovely health department. When they responded to my call, I was amazed at the stuff we were supposed to be doing that we weren't doing, such as rotating registers, having a dedicated person to clean the carts, being allowed every hour to go wash our hands, etc. I filled out my report and was told they would be in contact. However, I wasn't sure if they would actually do it, so I filed another complaint with the corporate office just to cement my bases. When I called corporate, I told them everything else my boss was doing, such as throwing merchandise. If it wasn't put out to her liking, she would literally pull it off the shelf and throw it, talking bad about employees to other managers. I have video evidence of her blaming all the staff on why nothing gets done, and all we do is sit around and talk, and for literally telling us not to enforce the mask mandates or the elderly shopping hours. I eventually did quit, and a couple of days later, I just simply walked out. Fast forward 2 weeks, I go back in because I need something, and I hear that the boss has been suspended for 2 weeks for failure to comply with the company policy and local mandates. They also hired a cleaning company to come and clean the store, and hired someone just to clean the store throughout the day. The manager's attitude and handling of the situation is definitely pretty disgusting to me, especially when they're well aware that their clientele is majorly an older population. Those are the people that are most at risk, and the fact that they're not taking it seriously at all is pretty disappointing. This next story is by MCG42 Ray. Run a red light in front of me, talk to the cop who's just behind me. I don't like red light runners. It's really dangerous, but I got my revenge. Once. This was mumble years ago. I was doing my usual commute and had just missed a light, so I was first at the intersection and others were lining up behind me. It's a sunny day in California, so I'm just looking around and I spot a CHP, California Highway Patrol car in the next lane over and one car back. It's a good thing to notice, cough, and I make a mental note to behave myself when the light turns green. I drove a black Saab 900 Turbo. I really liked that car. As the light's about to turn green, I see across the intersection a car approaching fast in the left turn lane to turn in front of me, and it's clear that they are not going to succeed at beating the light. It's not even going to be close. My light turns green, I start to move forward as if I didn't see them, then slam the brakes and hit the horn, and they go zooming past in front of me. It was all for show, and I didn't even get into the intersection, but sure enough, Mr. California Highway Patrol noticed and made a right turn around the traffic island to follow them. In my imagination, the officer says, "You know you nearly caused an accident back there." And in California, red light tickets are really expensive. But I continued on my way to work. Just another day in Silicon Valley. Honestly, considering what I've heard about California drivers sometimes, this is probably like OP doing a public service trying to get somebody to stop driving like a jerk. Or an idiot. Whichever you prefer. And our final story of the day is by mjdlittlenic. Self-Inflicted Petty Revenge? This happened in the late 80s to early 90s. I worked in an office that had a fair number of young secretaries. There were 2 secretaries named Bella. They were the same age and started at about the same time. One was very laid back and competent. She was also petite and slim. The other was very insecure and loved playing mean girls. Bella 2 hated that Bella 1 existed. It really was like working in a high school. At some point into their employment, having 2 identically named people in an office that did not give secretaries last names became an issue. Bella 2 started campaigning to nickname Bella 1 Little Bella. Bella 1 didn't care, and Bella felt good for tagging her competition with a condescending nickname. Yes, you guessed the revenge and who got wounded. The office went with Little Bella just fine and promptly dubbed the second one Big Bella. That was her name for at least the last 3 years I worked in that office. She just could not bully her way out of that nickname. If only they were civil and they wanted to collaborate with their coworkers, they wouldn't end up with a kind of funny nickname that makes them feel pretty unhappy about themselves probably. Imagine the disappointment for this lady trying to get Bella, one called Little Bella, to put them down, just for the next 3 years to be in return called Big Bella. I'm sure it bothered them a fair amount. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So, which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here on the Storytime channel.